Good morning. My name is Julie Vogel, and I'm a member of St. Paul's, and I'm going to read to you a chapter from Luke 13, and I welcome you to read along if you'd like. Then he told this parable. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it and found none. So he said to the gardener, "See here, for 3 years I have come looking for fruit on this fig tree, and still I find none. Cut it down. Why should it be wasting the soil?" He replied, "Sir, let it alone for 1 more year until I dig around it and put manure on it. If it bears fruit next year, well and good, but if not, you can cut it down." Thank you.
There you go, Julie. Julie, you're just glad that you got the scripture with the word manure in it. I know you are. Out of all that you could get. Okay. Well, next time we'll know who to call next time it comes up, okay? Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Britton Fields. I'm lead pastor here at St. Paul's Church. Our vision here is to be a community that loves like Jesus. You've heard that a number of times today. We just want to share that welcome. One of the ways that we love like Jesus is we share the welcome of God, and that we extend that to all people. So we don't withhold it. We just share that radical love that Jesus had for everyone. And so if you're here today, however you came, it is my privilege to just be able to say, God welcomes you to this place here today. So I was gone last week, and if you were here, Eric Pagan preached the message. Is Eric here today? I don't know if he is here today. He preached last week because I was gone at Missouri Annual Conference, myself and a lot of other people, and I watched his message on my drive home. Well, I didn't watch it. I had it on Facebook on the side, okay? I was safe. Thank you. Teddy's like, yeah, right, dude. I listened to his message on my drive home, and one of the things that I have learned in ministry over a number of years is sometimes you have something to say, and that can be really helpful. When God has placed something on your heart, you say it. And sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of the way so that God can speak through other people. And Eric brought a great message. So if you have not listened to that, I encourage you to go back and do that. I'm grateful for him and his family and his leadership and all those things last week. So I just want to give him a round of applause if we could. So I was gone at Missouri Annual Conference last week. This is a gathering of all the pastors across the state and church members. So there's one representative per pastor of each church, and we all come into one place. This year it was at St. Charles, over on the St. Louis side, and when we're there, we do important business of the church. So we do things like we open churches, like we vote on opening them and closing them. We vote on, or we commission and license and ordain pastors. We have a memorial service where we remember clergy who have died over the last year. That's always a really sobering moment, and their spouses. And so we have a service for them. There's a retirement service. We do all these sorts of things. And so I just wanted to give you some highlights from that Missouri Annual Conference, just some quick little things so you can kind of be up to date. At Missouri Annual Conference, well, if you've been in Methodism for a little bit, you know that we've kind of had this infighting recently over the inclusion of LGBTQ persons in, across the global church. But this year, and you've seen this in a number of conferences, we had a large number of churches disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church. What that means is they said, hey, I no longer want to be in relationship with the United Methodist Church. So they may go to another denomination, they may go independent. That's really for each church to decide. And in the United Methodist Church, the one thing I will say is we have never really been focused on all coming to this same place and believing the same things, especially when it comes to maybe some of the social issues of our day. That's never been our main thing. Our main thing has always been, how can we point people to Christ, and especially the grace-filled message that Christ offers all. And so I'm thankful that's what we're doing here at St. Paul's, and we're continuing to be a community that loves like Jesus. The number of churches, though, that disaffiliated was 75 from the state of Missouri, which sounds like quite a bit, right? 75 churches, that is a lot. But as our bishop said at annual conference, there are a lot more of us staying than there are leaving. So in the state of Missouri, you might be surprised to know that there's still 580 churches that remain. In Missouri, that sounds like too many, quite frankly. That sounds like we have too many churches in Missouri. I don't know. 580 in Missouri, so we still have a lot of churches, and I will grieve and miss those churches that have decided they needed to do something different. It's okay. It's okay. They have voted and they've decided to go, but we're ready to continue forward offering a grace-filled message where all can come to the table of God. So that's what we're going to keep doing. And I'll tell you, I left very hopeful from this place because at that same conference, we had 42 people who decided to enter into vocational pastoral ministry. What that means is they got licensed to become a pastor or commissioned or ordained. 42 people that, despite all of our conflicts, they said, hey, I want to be a part of that. Isn't that crazy? You have to be a little bit crazy, I think, to do this. But that's what we had 42. One of those was Keenan Cortez, who's sitting in the front row. And so we're grateful for Keenan, and they're already trying to put you to work, I know, trying to get you to serve on these conference boards and things. And Kayla Horn also was licensed this past weekend. Angel Garcia was commissioned over the weekend as well. He attends here with his family. And so it really was exciting because the Spirit was moving. We had a concert. I don't know if you know him, B.B. Winans. Anybody know B.B. Winans? We had a concert in St. Louis, and it was so good. It was so good that night. But the Spirit was really moving at this conference, and I really left. My takeaway was that we have so much to offer as a people. We really do. It's just our job to go and invite and be a little bit more daring and invitational in the way that we share God's grace. There was a man who approached me. He's a retired pastor, and he was at this conference, and he said, hey, we have been watching your church. He's talking about St. Paul's. And he said, we really love this vision that you have to love like Jesus, and we've kind of taken and done some of that too. We've used some of that at our church. And then he said, maybe we could start a movement. Wouldn't that be fantastic? So there is something happening, and I'm excited for the future and following where God is leading. But that is my hope, is that we as a church and as a community can invite people in to what God is doing here at St. Paul's, but also in the Methodist Church, a grace-filled life and walk with God. And that is a bright future ahead, so I'm really excited about that. Today is also Father's Day, and I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers and to my dad. I was fortunate enough to have a really good dad that invested in me and put a lot of time in me, and he might be watching, I don't know. But Dad, I just want to tell you that I love you so, so much, and I'm just so grateful for the way that you cared for me. And one of the stories that I remember from my dad is he just really sacrificed himself to put me first. I was involved in target shooting through 4-H, so I would shoot targets, and I had a meet one morning, and of course I had other stuff going on that day. I had a soccer game, so my dad took me to the meet that morning, and in order to play in the soccer game, I had to get to the bus on time. If you don't reach the bus on time, then you don't get to play in the game. And so we left the target competition, and my dad raced and sped to get me to the bus on time. So for all the fathers who have broken the law for their sons, thank you. Thank you so much. So we're beginning a new series today. It's on the parables of Jesus, and these are really just stories that Jesus told. As people, we love stories. We love to hear them. I remember growing up, and my parents would read stories to me, and I just wanted to hear them over and over again. As I have gotten older, I've learned to read, more complex stories. I like to kind of read some classic literature when I have the time. I tried to read The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a slog of a read, and I got through half of it, which was still like hours upon hours. But I do love to read. I love Sherlock Holmes. Just stories. And if I'm not reading, then maybe I'll listen to a book, or maybe I will watch a TV show or a movie, and we'll get stories that way. Or how about like just sitting around a campfire and sharing stories? We love to hear stories. Stories actually bring to life something that may even be boring or stagnant. Think about things like statistics or a budget. People will say, if you look at the numbers will what? They will tell a story. And so we will use those things to make them more interesting. A story will make things interesting and engaging. When I preach, I try to share some stories because I don't want you all falling asleep on me I want you to be engaged while you're here. I want to share those stories because a story can illustrate something, a truth, a value, something about God, and that's exactly what the parables do. They convey this truth about the kingdom and nature and character of God. So we're going to be in this series for about 9 weeks. This is going to take us through the summer. But I don't think it's going to be boring because each story is its own unique story, and we're just going to read those and then see where that takes us. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next several weeks. Just moments ago, Julie read this story about a fig tree and some manure. And in that story, you see an owner, and he owns this garden or this field where there's these fig trees, and they produce fruit. This is the owner's livelihood. It's his job and it's business. And he comes across this fig tree that hasn't given any fruit. It's produced nothing for him. It's useless. So he is frustrated with it, and he wants to cut it down. And the gardener, he seeks out the gardener and tells him to carry out this task. And the gardener says, "Don't do it yet. I still believe that this tree can grow fruit. Just allow me a little time to tend to it, and it can grow. And if not, we can cut it down later." And so that's how the story unfolds. And on the surface, when you read this story, you can see that the owner is a lot like the world is sometimes. If you look at the way that the world will treat people or things, often they will make these snap judgments. They'll look in our life and they know nothing about us, but they'll assume things about us just because they are reading things on the surface. And conventional wisdom would say if we aren't useful or we are not adding value, conventional wisdom would tell you, hey, you know what? We can do without this person or this thing. They can judge or even cut down an individual. But here's the beautiful thing about this story too, is you have the gardener that enters in to the picture, and the gardener doesn't see the way that the owner and the world sees. The gardener sees something different. The gardener sees the potential of the tree. The gardener believes that fruit is possible and the tree can grow if it's just put in the right type of environment. And so the good news that we get to hear today is that the world, you all, doesn't know what it's talking about. The gardener does. And the gardener is willing to put the investment and time into that tree. See, for the owner to come and cut it down, that would be a huge mistake. The owner doesn't understand fig trees even, because the owner's not the one doing the actual work. The owner's not the one that's with the tree. If you know anything about fig trees, and I didn't know this, I had to read it on HGTV's website about fig trees, but fig trees take 3 to 5 years before they even produce fruit. So you have to let them grow, and you have to tend to them and cultivate that sense of growth. So to cut it down in year number 3 would be a huge mistake by the owner, because he would be giving up on all the time and investment he's already put into it. He'd be starting over, and he'd be cutting down the tree just when it's entering its window to create new life and fruit and growth. And thank goodness that the gardener sees through a lens of grace, and that the gardener believes, because the gardener intercedes on behalf of the tree. The gardener says, just give it a little more time. I'm willing to work with it. The gardener's even willing to get his hands a little dirty, sticking them into manure, right? And putting it around the tree to help it grow. We just saw that in that video with JJ Teddy showing up in the hospital and saying, I love you. One of the lowest moments of your life. Getting messy and seeing the potential and the beauty in someone or something. There's a hidden gem in this scripture that I don't want to gloss over. And it's the owner actually listens to the gardener, which I find amazing. The owner had his mind made up. I'm convinced of that. The owner wanted to cut that tree down. But he goes and he talks to the gardener who knows a thing or two about trees, and the gardener convinces the owner to keep it at least for 1 more year. And so the owner sets aside his own ego so that he can listen to the gardener and let him do his work. And that tells me that the things that we have to pay attention to and be careful about is that the work of following Christ and the work of sharing God's grace, it's not a hands-off type of endeavor. This is hands-on. You've got to get a little bit dirty. We can't do this sort of thing from a place of distance or privilege where we sit from afar and we make judgments from afar. No, we have to enter in to whatever thing it is that we are dealing with. One of the biggest mistakes I think that we can make as followers of Christ is that we will judge someone or something that we really don't know anything about. And the question that comes up in this particular scripture is, are we willing to be like a gardener, which is entering into the picture, tending to the soil, and just listening and learning about the person that is sitting in front of us, seeing their humanity. The other thing that we see here is that this type of work, it is incarnational. That word incarnational just means it is the Word made flesh. It is the Word that has come alive. Jesus didn't sit up far away off in heaven. No, Jesus came to you and to me. He visited earth. He lived among us. He felt the things that you and I feel. He didn't sit on his throne from afar. He came to be with us. Pastor Brian Zahn puts it like this. He says, Jesus is a gardener cultivating resurrection life in all who will come to him. So you think about whatever state you're in, however you've come here today, you may be feeling that the world has given up on you, or like people have given up on you. Or maybe you are giving up on yourself. You just don't believe in yourself anymore. My message for you today is that you need to get up. You need to try again. You need to cultivate the soil of your soul by turning to the gardener. Receiving everything that he has to offer you, because the gardener believes in you. And even when the world doesn't see it, even when there's no fruit, the gardener's promise for you is that fruit is just around the corner. The gardener wants to offer you everything that is good in life. Not things that are fleeting like wealth and possessions, but things that are meaningful, things like love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness. Here we are on Father's Day, and I think about the value of the gentleness of a father. When a father is truly gentle and how much the world needs that, that's what Christ promises you. And God won't ever give up on you. God sees you where you are. God sees your potential, and God will never leave you. In the book of Philippians, it says, "For it is God who is at work in you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure." God sees you in your life, and God says, "I am not through with you yet." Receive that. So I moved here to this church 2 years ago. I'm going on year number 3, and this all kind of bubbles up when you go to annual conference, because that's the time that these things happen. When I came here, I was very inexperienced, and I didn't really want to share that up front, but I'm sharing it now. You received a kind of inexperienced pastor that was nervous to even show up and be here, because I didn't know if I could do what I was sent to do. And I became a youth leader at a church in 2015. I worked with youth for 3 to 4 years. There was some overlap when I became a pastor in 2017. And then I did a variety of different things around the church, but I was always an associate. So I was only a pastor for about 4 years whenever they moved me here. And I never sat in a lead role, ever. So I was a little bit out over my skis, and I was nervous. Maybe you felt some of that when I first showed up. and I wasn't so certain or sure of myself. And I'm still not, it's okay. But this past weekend, I was grateful. I felt this sense of gratitude for how many of you have sent me encouraging notes and cards and have believed in me along the way. Text messages, I've gotten a lot of those things from many of you. Just conversations in the parking lot, maybe after a meeting. So I want to thank you for being an encourager to me, for being a gardener to me. The way it works when you get sent somewhere in the Methodist Church is the district superintendent, they sit with a leadership team and the bishop and some others, and they describe, okay, here's the type of person we want for this church. And then they go try to find a face for that or a name for it. And they kind of pulled my name out of the hat. And Alice Fowler, who was our DS, she played a big role in this, in helping to bring me here. She retired this weekend, actually at annual conference. And she spoke a few words from the stage, and afterwards, she was down at the front of the stage, and I got to hug her and visit with her for a little bit. And I was overwhelmed with emotion because I didn't expect this, but she was a gardener to me. Christ worked through her to tell me that maybe there was something within me. She saw something within me. And she believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Would you pray with me? Holy God, we ask that you just bless our time here today. Would you fill us up with your Spirit? Fill us up with the spirit of encouragement and belief and confidence, not in who we are or who we think we are, but in who you have created us to be. God, we just want to receive all that it is that you have for us. We want to step into a life that will produce good fruit. Thank you for believing in us, God. Thank you for never giving up on us. Thank you for saying that no one is too far gone. That's why we come back to worship you week after week after week. Because you are good. So hear our prayers, God. This day and each day moving forward, we ask all this in Christ's name, and everyone here says, amen.